control. Politicians and celebrities make deals behind closed doors, promises broken, and their income soars. Hidden agendas run the grand parade. In the circus, choose a masquerade. Believe me, I wouldn't lie. I've been given money, power, and fame to keep you in line.
Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about, well, let's just start with my little rant. Why don't we? So I do want to say that the last stream, I felt like it was so phoned in and I should have taken it down. But then I got messages about it. People were saying like they liked it, which is really weird because it was literally my most rambling one that I think I've done in a while. But anyways, so I'm back with another rant because I got to cook dinner. So I got to get in and out. Hello, believe in yourself. How you doing? Anyways, so this is going to be my rant on why cooking, cleaning, and providing is not parenting. And I'll tell you why. Okay. So a lot of people believe that it's just, housekeeping, right? Like they think housekeeping is being a parent. And when they say like, I'm such a good parent, my home is always cleaner. I'm such a good parent. My kid always has new shoes or always gets, books that they need from school. It's just like, that's like, nobody really says, hey, that's not parenting. But I'll get into that. All right. So why am I talking about this today? Well, I saw an X post. I'm not going to say whose post it is because this is not about them. It's not to like make them, look bad or whatever, or just say anything negative about this person. But it's just something that I see a lot. This comes up a lot, especially online. And it's always like, it's not that hard to be a mom or a dad. It's not hard to be a parent. Like, come on. And it's usually used in a way to make like a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad look like a slacker, look like a loser, look like they're not doing anything because, hey, parents don't do anything. Is the cultural narrative is being a parent is doing nothing except housekeeping. Okay, so this was the X post that I read. It was, I'm a work from home dad of 2 whose wife is out of town, and I can work a full-time online job and manage the house just by running some machines all day. Homemaking is super easy. Being a parent is no big deal, right? Okay, so let's talk about why people think this is parenting. Okay. So in other cultures around the world, and I've talked about this before, not just like wealthy people, but even like middle class or upper middle class people would have, like, especially in Asia and Latin America and where, my dad's from and everything, this is very common. It's kind of just not common for a couple Western areas, right? But this is a very common thing that you would have all of these sort of tasks outsourced, right? So a maid who will like sweep the floors and scrub the counters, keeps the home spotless, a cook that plans and prepares the meals. And like the children, well, like a nanny would come in, right? So a nanny would come in. She's like the closest thing that we could call parenting, right? So she's the one who's like in the day-to-day trenches, regulating the children's emotions when a tantrum happens or something disappointing happens to them. Maybe she's a chauffeur picking them up from school, driving them to like soccer practice, piano, whatever it is, right? Listening to their endless complaints, such and such happened at school. The teacher said this, my friend did this, that person did that, right? All of these things, that is what the nanny would do. But even that is still not true parenting, right? Parenting goes further than just a nanny's role, right? It's more about being your child's architect of their future, right? So it's a lot more like strategic planning to shape the child's life trajectory. It's kind of a big deal, right? And, you know, I understand a lot of people are in public schools or like they've just had so many generations of this is just how it's always been. And, like, or if that's all you can afford as a parent, you can't do these things. You kind of tell yourself those things don't matter. It'll work itself out. I worked myself out. They'll work themselves out. But okay. So what a real parent is supposed to be doing. And not to say like you're not a real parent or whatever, but this is what we want as the ideal. The ideal parent would be someone who is like looking at their child's interests and their strengths and trying to figure out how do we cultivate them to want to be a lifelong learner? How do we cultivate them to learn skills that are going to help them in life? Who should they marry? How do we build a community around the children, a network of good, solid people so that they can choose a spouse who's going to be a true partner and not just some hasty mistake that you just kind of make because you just going by the seat of your pants these days, right? So parenting is instilling those types of values that will last a lifetime, morals, principles to live by, the whole compass that guides them through life's many storms. So it's going to be teaching them how to navigate heartache, right? The first breakup, the first loss, somebody loses their life, whatever, things like that. How to deal with that, how to respond, how to spot a bad friend, how to find someone that drains you or manipulates you or leads you astray from like your goals in life, and how to forge the good friendship, the kind that, build on trust and mutual uplifting and respect. How to discern if someone is a good person at their very core, or if they're just like flashing a smile or something while using you to gain something for themselves. On and on it goes, right? So how to tell if genuine affection is being shown towards you, or is it a form of manipulation to eventually exploit you or something. Also, how to stand up for yourself is a big part of parenting. You got to be teaching your kids how to stand up. How to stand up for yourself sometimes without burning bridges. So you have to do it strategically in certain situations. A lot of people just like want to burn the house down. No, you can't do that. Like if you do that every single time, you're not going to have a job. You're probably not going to have friends or a relationship. You can't burn bridges. You have to very strategically. There's a few times where you need to do that, but most of the time you've got to be a little bit diplomatic with life. How to build resilience so the world can throw anything they want at you and you know who you are and you respond accordingly, right? So the tragedy of our modern era is we have this work, 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 me culture, and we've built this shrine to individualism, right? We left the children alone in confusion and expect them to just figure out what to believe, figure out who they should love, figure out who they should be trusting in the world with very precious little direction from us, right? So parents are buried under emails, under deadlines. They're too exhausted. They're too stressed to even unwind themselves sometimes, let alone ponder what's truly best for their children. All right. So a lot of them are checked out. They're scrolling on their feeds and, they're kind of like numb to like the deeper connections that children will crave. And many of us, we had to claw our way through life all by ourselves, lucking into success, stumbling upon decent mentors, but still, even if we made it okay, it's still no excuse to pass on the exact same neglect. We owe children more than just basic survival needs, more than a full belly, a clean shirt, a paycheck funded new cool gadget. We owe them guidance, wisdom, and very deliberate hand in crafting their path in life. So anything less is not parenting, it's abdication, it's time that people realize that parenting is not just like the lowest form of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's what they think parenting is nowadays. It's like gotten so bottom of the barrel, just screw it, just like throw them in daycare, throw them in public school. I'll see them after I get out of work at 8 p.m. when I'm tired and I'm exhausted. And if they, God forbid, they ask for something, I'm just going to shut them down. Do what you're told. Go to your room. Figure it out. Use ChatGPT. I don't care. Not my problem. That's what parenting has become now. So if we're really honest with ourselves and, like a moment of reflection, reducing parenting to just like the drudgery of cooking, cleaning, and providing just short changes the children, right? It sets off a chain reaction of misery through generations. So just because you had to suffer through that and your grandparents and your parents and whatever and generations had to suffer through it does not mean that it is right, right? So we're stepping away from like this essence of guidance and leaving a void. And that void is getting filled with despair, confusion, negativity, right? Depression starts creeping in because children grow up without emotional anchors that true involved parenting provides. They're fed, they're clothed, they're housed, sure, but their spirits kind of starved. They wander into adulthood feeling unseen, unmentored most of the time, and stuck in a world that just demands more than just basic survival skills, right? So if we're not actively shaping their inner worlds, they'll battle isolation, self-doubt, purposelessness, right? Even clinical depression. So we have an absence of real parental wisdom in the world right now. And it just makes the kids turn to equally clueless sources for advice. So that's when they start going to their peers who are also fumbling in the dark, or other adults who've barely figured themselves out, recycling half-baked platitudes from social media, from echo chambers, just whatever cliche that they heard a few times. Maybe they even hear the full cliche. They've heard snippets of it. It's just like a hall of mirrors where bad advice kind of bounces off of each other. So I know that we have, as humans, a propensity to get sucked into fear-based propaganda. So it'll be like a bunch of peddlers of alarmists and opportunists will come in, and instead of parenting or teaching kids how to be successful, how to build resilience, chase ambition, have meaningful connections, it'll, because it's being monetized, because it needs engagement, because it needs to strike fear in you so that you pay attention, it's going to default to an endless assault on the billions and billions of ways that something can go wrong, right? Don't date because you'll get cheated on, left heartbroken, lied to, manipulated, ghosted. Don't start a business. You'll go bankrupt, get scammed, or buried in debt. Don't trust anyone. The world's full of backstabbers. It's a barrage of warnings and what ifs, and this paralyzes rather than empowers children, right? And it's happened to so many of us because we were children. So because the human brain is just so wired for survival, it's going to be a threat detection machine. It's evolved to spotlight dangers over, good things. So we're going to pay our most strongest amount of attention to potential pitfalls, while positive stories, they just don't hit that spot, right? They just don't give us that. So we're not going to pay as much attention to it. And it's going to be harder to internalize success, right, than it is to just, and success requires modeling, repetition, encouragement from someone who wants to like demonstrate that to the child. Like a parent who, let's say they failed in a relationship, but they take the time to sit the child down and say, look, I failed. I'm not gonna throw my failure on my child. Like, yeah, some people fail, but the difference when somebody who fails and somebody who wants to be a good parent and has failed is the one who wants to be a good parent is going to sit the child down and say, look, I failed. I did this wrong, and this wrong. I know these people who have done it right, and what they did different than me is this, and the other. That is parenting. Just telling people what to be afraid of isn't parenting. You have to say why, and you have to say how to do it correctly. But a lot of us are overworked, checked out parents, drained, trying to get success in careers, in other areas of life that they completely scrape by on parenting. So it does seem like the system is a bit rigged against parents right now. It's like kind of there's no time to really have that. You were forced to be in a two-parent working household. And in order to stay sane, you have to tell yourself that the kids are going to be all right, that they don't need any more from you, that the little bit of attention you can give after a hard day's work when you're tired, you were fighting with your boss, you were fighting traffic, you only get 1 hour to cook and 1 hour to, see your kids and relax at the same time and then put them to bed. That's just not enough to parent. So because our model does not breed success, it's going to keep repeating itself over and over. And it's like a cycle of mediocrity and regret. It's a pattern. And patterns are dangerous because a few people will be lucky and they'll succeed regardless of all the problems stacked against them. That's like saying, I was, abused. I was this, I was that, and I turned out fine. That's not how you do it. You're not supposed to just throw your kids up into throw them to the wolves and just go, well, I survived out there, so you better do it too. You should try to tell them about the dangers and the cautionary tales, but provide a framework for their whole lives so that they cannot make poor choices. So they have also the framework for success, for doing it correctly. So before, I go on, I want to bring it back to the original post, right? I have machines that run all day. Having kids is easy, right? So I'm thinking back to when my dad was a stay-at-home parent, right? He would never say something that sounds like that. Like, oh, it's so easy to be a stay-at-home parent. I got a washer machine. I have a dishwasher. I got a maid, right? So what he would say is, like he was there well before school ended to pick me up because he knows in busy crowds, kids can fall into trouble with other kids. They can get kidnapped walking home alone from school. I got stories. It's for another time. Also, he knew the families of all my friends, and he would stay at every single play date watching me, not even socializing if that meant taking his eyes off me, right? He was on guard. He is watching, and that gives the child a sense of safety. Now, far enough that you can go play with your friends, you can do what you need to do, but within earshot, kind of line of sight where if anything happens, boom, right there. And there's so many times where things almost happen. I've had, and I think I told you guys this before, about times when I had a friend and they tried to drown me out of nowhere, or they tried to push me off a building one time. There's some stories, and that's kids, right? So, and you can say, well, you survived, but the reality is I wouldn't have survived personally. I wouldn't be here without parenting, without that type of in-depth parenting that I experienced. And the next thing, he didn't just help me with my homework. He did it calmly and relaxed because he wasn't under extreme pressure or time crunch or a massive stress. He took me to the park daily and he watched me and my friends whose parents were never home because because they were always working. He was always, he knew all my teachers. He went on every single field trip, always took me into the family restroom. And if there wasn't one, he would ask a mother who was going in the restroom to look out for me. And then he would stay and guard in front of the door, right? So keeping me safe, right? And he also taught me how to do that too. So like when I grew up, I knew like what's the safe way, because girls get, taken from restrooms all the time. There's always, I don't know if you guys have this in the male restrooms, but I know in girl restrooms, there's strategically in all the big places, there's an exit door inside the girls' restrooms that usually leads to like a outdoor area where a car can drive up. I'm telling you, this is my conspiracy, but it seems to me that it was designed for kidnappings. I'm just gonna say it. Look, I don't care. I don't know. They're like, oh well, it's in case of a fire. Fine, whatever. Why is the exit door always to a covered place where a car can drive up unseen by anyone? Why is that? And I'm thinking of thousands of examples. I'm just saying, like, I'm just going to move on, but something to think about. Anyways, he taught me how to ride a bike, how to cross busy streets, how to tell if somebody was safe. What are the signs somebody is safe? Come on, Kat. What are the signs? Okay, we're here. Like he would literally do this. Like we would be at a shopping center. If you lose me, who's safe and how do you know? And tell me what your thought process is on why that person is safe. And he'd wait and I'd have to sit there and come up with, I think that person's safe because they have 2 kids and whatever. And they seem like a good parent and the kids seem happy. And then he's like, good, what else? Who else? And then he would just like go along with like, that's parenting. I've never seen that many parents do that stuff anymore. It's really, really, it's rare. It's kind of like just be quiet, kid. I'm looking for something. Like that's what the parenting has become. Anyways, he would also people watch with me every single Sunday, right? So every single Sunday we'd go to like one of those outdoor restaurants on the beach. And he would look at people, like different couples, different friend groups. And he would say, do you see this? Like let's say they'd be a friend group of like kids who are dressed kind of like hoodlums and stuff like that. And he'd be like, you see that one? That one is just trying to get along with these other ones. And you know what? They want approval because they probably don't have a good relationship with their parents at home. So they're looking to fit in. So these other kids are bad kids and they're probably doing drugs. And they're probably going to get that kid to do drugs because he's just lonely and needs someone to hang out with and to belong. So he's hanging out with these losers. And then he would do the same thing with like couples that were walking around. He's like, you see that guy? He lets his girlfriend dress like she's a streetwalker. He doesn't love her. And he would tell me like if he allows or chooses a woman that dresses like that, he only wants the woman's body. He doesn't care about her because if you love someone, you don't want them to get all of this unnecessary, dangerous for a woman attention. And then he would show me another couple. You see this couple, the woman dressed very classy. She looks very clean. She looks like she's well taken care of, well loved. And then, they have a baby and you see like he's looking at her, not the young, scantily clad skanks in the other table. And he would say that like, these are the things you need to look for. This is a good person. This is what they're looking for. This is a sign that they're not a good person, that they're an opportunist, a sneaky person, right? And then he would go over different personality types, which were not like the psychological personality types. They were the type of personality types that he invented, like, the snake, the this or whatever. Like these were things he came up with. And he'd be like, how do you know someone is like this? Well, because they'll do this and this and this. How do you test them? How do you test them? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. And then he would tell me. And he would do the same thing with health related stuff, wealth related stuff, how to tell if someone was going to be a good friend, how to tell if someone really wanted you around, what to do if all your friends get invited to the party and you don't, right? How to like react, how to think about your friend group and what to do. And also like things to do. And he was really good for a guy. This is amazing, actually, thinking about it. He was really good at telling me about female competition because he was, just very like on the ball with that type of stuff. So he'd be like, so if a girlfriend of yours says this and this and this, what does that mean? What is she trying to get you to feel? And why do you think she would want you to feel that? And then I'd have to think about it, because if you didn't have someone telling you that stuff and somebody said something to try to make you feel small or less attractive or stupid as a woman, right? You'd kind of be like, oh, maybe I'm stupid or less attractive, whatever. You wouldn't even think, because we're so freaking in our heads and thinking about ourselves. We don't always think about, why is this person trying to make me feel this way, right? And he's the one who trained me. He's like, anytime somebody's trying to make you feel unattractive or not intelligent or stupid or they're whatever it is, it's because they feel intimidated by you for whatever reason. Maybe you're trying to get the guy that they like, or the guy they like is interested in you, or you are going to get the job that they want and maybe you're a better candidate than them for it, or whatever it is, or they're jealous because you got a better grade than them, whatever it is. These are the reasons why people do those things. And if you don't know to stop and reflect, and he would train me, he would say, like, he would pretend like he was one of my friends. He's like, so and so, your little friend over there, let's say she said this and this and this. Why do you think she would say that? What would she be trying to make you feel? And what would be her end goal? Think about it. So it's kind of just like thinking about the world so much more levels deep than what you would automatically think about the world, which is kind of exhausting, but it's so important. And you see some people, they talk about like 5 steps ahead. You have to think 5 steps ahead. And like for business, right? Like Patrick Bet-David has this thing, like, what's it called? 5 moves ahead or something, right? So now, not because of him, just because of what my dad said, I always think whenever somebody makes me angry, makes me sad, makes me whatever, I always think, what's 5 moves ahead? What are they trying to accomplish by making me feel or do or think or whatever these feelings? What are they trying to do? And I always think, like, if somebody is, let's say you're dating someone and they start picking fights with you, right? Picking fights with you, making you feel not intelligent, making you feel not as attractive, making you feel not wanted or not heard. So you have to be thinking 10 steps ahead, and then look for other clues around. Okay, they're not paying attention to me anymore. Maybe they're looking online or whatever. Maybe they're on their phone a lot, talking to somebody else. Maybe they're a little more chummy with somebody from work. Maybe they're, doing something, right? Or it could be you invite a new friend into the friend group and suddenly all the other friends are not being very warm with you anymore. And you realize, okay, everything happened when this new person came into the friend group. This new person feels a little intimidated by you. So she's probably making up lies to tell the other people so that they don't like you, so that she can take over the friend group and kick you out. These things happen all the time. It's not just like women and stuff. Like, this happens to guys too. Guys are just not as cued in to this type of stuff, but it does happen. That's why it's always good to have a female friend, because I've done this for many guy friends growing up, is there'll be somebody who's trying to get rid of this guy from the group. They don't like him. They just don't like him. There's no reason why. They feel like he's not good enough, not attractive enough, not wealthy enough to be in the friend group. So they're trying to sabotage his relations with everybody in the group to kick him out because they don't want him there, right? This happens all the time. So I see what I'm seeing, and then I can explain it to the guy. This is what's happening. I don't know why. Did you have a problem with this person because this is what they're doing? And then, we come up with a plan to kind of like counteract what the other person is doing or do something against them. Strategery, if you will. Strategery is the spice of life. So anyways, another thing good parents do is they never say, because I said so. Everything is an explanation, and everything is told to you in a calm and reasonable tone because they want you to understand, not be scared into compliance. Right? So maybe the house isn't spotless. Maybe the meals, sometimes they're leftovers, but parenting is separate from those things. Now, usually a good parent has a decent home and decent meals, right? They got it together. But the two things are not like the same. You can have the most spotless home and be a terrible parent. I've seen lots of, especially narcissistic parents. I'm talking about guys and girls. Narcissistic people love each other. Sometimes they get together and they have kids and they completely ignore those kids. And they just say, dress nice, look nice, make me look good, and deal with it. Anyways, I think something's on fire in the kitchen. I gotta check on Mini Cat. Anyways, so, oh my gosh. So, that is my rant for today, you guys. I know I didn't have a long time to like get into it more, but it was something I wanted to talk about. So the next time somebody says that they are a good parent and they just talk about how clean their home is, remember that a good parent is someone who says, my kids are financially successful. They're all married to wonderful, kind people. They're all moral and ethical. They're well-spoken. They're well-read. They're emotionally regulated. They feel safe and fulfilled in their lives. They're not depressed. And they're active and they're loved in their communities, right? Anything less is not impressive. And they're not in the position to one up on you or others, right? I said what I said. So, with that, I gotta go see what she's burning because she's burning my house down. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, disagree in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Anyone said anything directly that I need to say? Thank you. Yes, I will. I women-splain at least once a week on here. Yes, I agree with this. We need to appreciate the feminine more because nobody cares about that. But I think you need like both a feminine and a masculine parenting style together. Because I feel like, yeah, my dad was really good at the social stuff, but generally it's going to be the woman that's better at the social stuff and the guy that's better at like the safety stuff, the strategery stuff, the business stuff. Yes, parenting is hell on earth right now. I mean, look, I was raised by a stay-at-home dad. So I'm just saying, I think I turned out fine. I mean, it could be better. I could be rich, but we get what we get. At least I'm like, I'm going to say where my dad was the most successful with teaching me about relationships, interpersonal dynamic stuff. He really spent the time for that. Making sure I wasn't a hoe was like number one for him. Then he used to also, I don't know if this related, he was really big on me knowing every single plant. I don't know why. And he would say, what's this plant? And if I didn't get it right, he'd smack me on the back of my head. I don't know. But he would be like, what's this plant? What are its medicinal benefits? How do you extract the plant medicine or whatever from it? Or like, this is for diabetes. You need these herbs and this one. And he was very concerned about me knowing all the local fauna, flora that was medicinal for whatever reason. That's another weird thing that I grew up having to know. Oh my God. Yes. Oh, and I'm going to talk, I might talk about Iran this weekend if Damon could come so we could talk about that. So I could give you guys my take on what's going on over there because I do know some things. I've kind of changed my views a little bit, just learning more. And I'm particularly concerned about Islam coming to America in a big way where they become the dominant power over here because it took so little, like literally so little for them to take over Iran. And it was basically what would be considered, the equivalent would be liberal white women here was the liberal women over there. Mind you, in Iran, at the time before the revolution, let's be very clear. Abortion was legal. They already had the right to abortion. There was an average of 1 to 4 abortions a year, right? Totally legal. It wasn't even like a question. It was like if you needed to for whatever reason, a health issue or something, a woman was attacked or whatever, something like that, like it was no questions asked. But they would only use it for those things. It wasn't a law against using it as anything else, but it's just like nobody even thought of that because it was just like, you don't do that. But whatever. The next thing was we had strip clubs, we had nude beaches, we had, clubs. They're big drinkers over there. They're party people. They're like, if you know Persian people, they're super party people. They like to get down, whatever. But marriage rates were very high, very stable. They're very much family people. So think of like, Latin culture, they're very family people. Persians are very family people. They're very big party people, hanging out, whatever, doing stuff. And like, that's just normal over there. So the fact that such a teensy weensy little population was able to convince the bored, educated women in college that they needed to put an Islamic regime in power to give them more rights, which I don't know what rights they didn't have. Just like, I don't know what rights women don't have here. And they still convinced all these women that they need rights. I don't know what the rights are. Nobody can really tell you what the rights are. Like, what rights? The right to work, you can work. The right to make as much as a man. If you do what a man does, if you ask for a raise like a man does, you can make as much as a man does. If you're worthwhile as much as a man, yeah, of course, they will always pay the top earners top dollar. That's just how it's supply and demand, baby. That's all I'm saying. Also, in Iran, before the revolution, more women were in politics than men. More women were in like high-paying professions than men, and they were still married, and they were still having families and children and stuff. Like, it just didn't matter. So, like, you can do both. You totally can. But I think the difference in the culture is what made that one so like stable. I think the family part, like the family help. Here, if you have 2 people working, they're also having to cook, clean, and take care of the children. Over there, if you have 2 people working, the parents, two sets of grandparents are retired, right? There's usually at least 1 or 2 women in the family that are stay-at-home mothers, so they will help take care of everybody's kids, like collectively, while all the people who work. And they usually have a big reason why they were able to do this is they had family compounds. They didn't have single family homes. Single family homes is like a sickness. It's a sickness, you guys. You should not be away from your family. Try to make it work. Try to, like, if you don't have a family, get some friends you really like and try to raise your kids together on a compound. It's going to really change your life and change the trajectory of everybody's life. Community is so important. And when you don't have that, you are screwed. Anyways, so I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. I will see you all next time. And remember, like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. I think I put a good Discord link in the description that works today. So hopefully, and if anything, you can message me or put a comment if the Discord link expires. Alrighty, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye.
The old gods whisper with tongues of sin. They crawl through culture to pull you in. Don't be for sale, don't wear their grin. The old are rotten, don't let them win. Eyes and nights and mirrored glass. They promised youth, they cursed your past. 'Cause 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 dream.